It was supposed to be the one place in Sin City that was safe for kids. A carnival-themed wonderland with roller coasters, arcade games, and the world's cheapest hot dogs. But in the shadows of the big top, something else is happening. A string of disturbing headlines and viral videos show a very different picture. But are these isolated incidents? Or has the soul of Circus Circus been deliberately hollowed out, leaving something much darker behind? In this video, we will investigate the mounting safety concerns, the staff who have spoken out, and the corporate decisions that turned a family paradise into a place many now actively avoid. What happens when the company responsible for keeping you safe is the same one cutting costs to the bone? To understand what went wrong, you have to remember what Circus Circus once represented. Since 1968, it was the anti-Vegas Vegas. While other casinos chased high rollers and sophistication, Circus Circus embraced chaos, fun, and affordability. It was where middle-class families from across America could afford to taste the Vegas dream. The vision came from Jay Sarno, the same maverick who built Caesar's Palace. But unlike the Roman-themed luxury palace, Circus Circus was designed with a different clientele in mind. It was America's vision, a playground that was loud, colorful, and unapologetically tacky in the best possible way. Those vintage 1970s commercials tell the story perfectly. "Bring the whole family to the greatest show in Vegas," they proclaimed, as footage showed acrobats spinning overhead while parents and children alike gazed upward in wonder. The big top design was not just aesthetic, it was functional. While parents gambled downstairs, kids could watch free circus acts and play carnival games above. It was ingenious. The children were entertained while mom and dad contributed to the casino's bottom line. And those legendary $2 steak dinners, they were not just marketing gimmicks. They were part of the fundamental promise that defined Circus Circus, that Vegas could be affordable. You did not need to be a high roller. You could be a factory worker from Michigan, a teacher from Nebraska, or a plumber from Oregon, and still give your family a vacation they would never forget. For the Johnson family from Phoenix, Circus Circus was an annual tradition. Every summer, from 1985 to 2005, they would pile into their Dodge Caravan and make the 5-hour drive to Las Vegas. The parents had their casino time, and the kids had the Midway Games, and later the Adventure Dome when it opened in 1993. It was the perfect compromise. Not too adult for the children, not too childish for the parents. Michael Johnson, a former guest, recalls that they could not afford the Mirage or Bellagio. At Circus Circus, they felt like they belonged. It was not fancy, but it was theirs. The staff knew them by name by their third visit. This was not just one family's story. It was the story of millions of middle-class Americans who made Circus Circus their entry point to Las Vegas. The property was not trying to be something it was not. It delivered exactly what it promised: affordable fun, decent accommodations, and a place where families could create memories without breaking the bank. For decades, this formula worked brilliantly. While other properties changed hands and concepts repeatedly, Circus Circus remained steadfast in its identity. It was dependable, it was accessible, and most importantly, it felt safe. But everything changed when MGM decided Circus Circus no longer fit their portfolio. The sale to Phil Ruffin in 2019 marked the beginning of a different philosophy: to maximize profits while minimizing investment. The $825 million price tag seemed like a bargain for a 3,700-room property on the Las Vegas Strip, but it came with strings attached. The new ownership inherited aging infrastructure, outdated systems, and a property that had not seen meaningful renovation in decades. Instead of addressing these issues head-on, what followed appears to be a calculated decision to extract value while investing as little as possible back into the property. This is not speculation. The evidence is overwhelming when you examine what has happened since the ownership change. Let's start with the maintenance death spiral that began in earnest around 2020 and accelerated through 2023. Former maintenance supervisor Carlos Mendez, who left in 2022 after 7 years with the property, describes a dramatic shift. He says maintenance used to be preventative. After the sale, the approach became, do not fix something until it breaks completely. The team was cut in half while the workload doubled. The results are visible everywhere. Guest photos uploaded to review sites show carpets worn through to the backing, particularly in high-traffic areas. Water damage stains discolor ceiling tiles throughout the property. Elevators routinely break down, forcing guests to wait 20 to 30 minutes during peak times, or walk up multiple flights of stairs with luggage and children in tow. One TripAdvisor review from April 2024 described a bathroom ceiling falling apart, with chunks missing and water damage everywhere. When the guests called the front desk, they were told staff were aware of the issue, but there were no maintenance staff available to address it. Housekeeping has been hit particularly hard. According to former housekeeping manager Maria Delgado, who worked at the property until late 2023, before the pandemic they had around 180 housekeepers for the entire property. By the time she left, they were operating with fewer than 90, despite being at nearly full capacity again. This staffing reduction has led to extended room turnaround times, with some guests reporting check-in delays of up to 4 hours because rooms were not ready. Others described checking into rooms that clearly had not been properly cleaned, with evidence of previous guests still present. But perhaps most concerning is the safety timeline that emerges when examining both public records and guest testimonials. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department data shows a 32% increase in calls for service to the Circus Circus address from 2021 to 2023, significantly higher than the average increase across other Strip properties during the same period. Security staffing tells part of the story. Former security officer James Wilson notes that they cut patrols in the outer parking areas from hourly to every 3 hours. Camera coverage in those areas was spotty at best. He said they kept warning management someone was going to get hurt. Those warnings proved prescient. In August 2022, 3 separate vehicle break-ins occurred in a single night in the west parking lot. In November 2022, a family was robbed at gunpoint while walking to their car. By 2023, TripAdvisor reviews mentioning unsafe or security concerns had increased by 217% compared to 2019 figures. Inside the property, concerns continued to mount. The once family-friendly Midway became increasingly chaotic during evening hours, with multiple reports of unsupervised teenagers harassing younger children and their parents. Security response times lengthened, with guests reporting waits of 20-plus minutes when calling for assistance. Even the food options, once a point of pride for the property, collapsed in quality while increasing in price. The famous buffet, which closed during COVID, never returned in its original form. Instead, it was replaced with a scaled-down cafeteria-style operation with fewer options at higher prices. The legendary cheap hot dogs went from $1.99 in 2019 to $6.99 by 2023, a 250% increase with no discernible improvement in quality. Limited dining options now force many guests to leave the property entirely for meals, defeating the convenience factor that once made Circus Circus appealing for families. Former food service director Anthony Ramirez did not mince words. He said, "We were told explicitly to reduce portion sizes by 15% while raising prices. Quality ingredients were substituted with cheaper alternatives across the board. When I objected, citing guest complaints, I was told, they will eat it anyway. They do not have better options." Financial filings tell the story behind these decisions. While exact property-level financials are not publicly disclosed, industry analysts estimate the operating margin at Circus Circus increased from approximately 22% under MGM to nearly 35% under the new ownership, achieved primarily through cost-cutting rather than revenue growth. This approach might benefit the bottom line in the short term, but the long-term consequences for both the property and its guests are severe and increasingly apparent. Let's return to the Johnson family, who visited Circus Circus annually for over 2 decades. After a hiatus, they decided to return in 2024, excited to share their tradition with a new generation. What they found was barely recognizable. Michael Johnson recounts that they arrived at 3 p.m., check-in time, but were not able to get into their room until after 7 p.m. The front desk was severely understaffed, with just 2 employees handling a line of over 50 families. No explanations, no apologies. When they finally reached their room in the West Tower, they found dated furnishings that had not been updated since their last visit years earlier. The carpet was stained, The bathroom showed signs of mold around the tub, and the air conditioning rattled so loudly they had to turn it off to sleep. In Vegas in summer. Johnson says the noise level throughout the property was overwhelming. Not the fun, excited noise of families enjoying themselves, but a stressful cacophony that seemed to amplify tension. Security was nowhere to be seen when a fight broke out near the Midway Games around 9 p.m. He and his wife decided it was not safe to let their kids walk around unaccompanied, even during daytime hours. Finding decent food became another challenge. The family left the property for every meal after their first disappointing experience at the food court, where a simple lunch for four cost nearly $80, for what Johnson describes as barely edible fast food. The Johnsons aren't alone in their disillusionment. Social media has become a platform for shared disappointment, with viral TikTok videos documenting the property's decline and racking up millions of views. One particularly damning video from March 2024 shows a guest walking through 6 different floors trying to find a working ice machine, only to discover that none were operational. Another shows water actively leaking from a corridor ceiling onto the carpet with a makeshift barrier of towels that appeared to have been there for some time. The online ratings tell a stark story. Circus Circus has fallen to a 3.1 out of 5 average on TripAdvisor, down from 3.8 out of 5 in 2019 before the ownership change. More troubling is the trajectory. In the last 6 months, the average rating has slipped further to 2.7 out of 5, with dirty, unsafe, and outdated being the most common descriptors. Families are voting with their wallets. Budget-conscious travelers who once viewed Circus Circus as their only option now choose alternatives like the Ling Q, Excalibur, or even off-strip properties that offer better value and more consistent experiences. We ended up checking out after the second night of our 5-night stay, Johnson admits. We lost money on the reservation, but we couldn't subject our kids to those conditions any longer. We found a room at Flamingo for just $30 more per night that was clean, modern, and felt secure. This exodus of families represents something more significant than just one hotel's decline. It symbolizes the erosion of accessible Vegas for regular American families. As strip properties increasingly chase ultra-luxury with rooms at $1,000 per night and $25 cocktails, Circus Circus was supposed to be the holdout, the place that still welcomed everyone. Tourism professor Dr. Eleanor Martinez from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, notes the broader implications. When we lose affordable family options on the Strip, we lose demographic diversity. Vegas becomes increasingly exclusionary, catering only to those with significant disposable income. That's a profound shift from the city's historical identity as an attainable luxury for the average American. For staff, the decline has been equally painful to witness. Longtime employees describe a culture shift from pride to embarrassment. "I used to tell people where I worked with excitement," says former gift shop manager Teresa Huang. "By the end, I avoided mentioning it because I knew what people would say. That place has really gone downhill." The most heartbreaking stories come from employees who genuinely cared about maintaining standards, but were systematically prevented from doing so. Maintenance requests ignored, cleaning supplies rationed, security concerns dismissed. These were not failures of individual staff members, but symptoms of a system designed to minimize costs, regardless of consequences. So this isn't a story about an aging hotel that can't keep up. This is about calculated neglect. When you defer maintenance, cut staff, and ignore guest complaints, you are making a choice. You are choosing short-term profits over the promises you have made to families for over 50 years. The mathematics are simple and sobering. The average cost to properly renovate a hotel room in Las Vegas is between $20,000 and $30,000. With 3,700 rooms, a comprehensive renovation would require an investment of $74 million to $111 million. That is substantial, but a fraction of the $825 million purchase price. Instead, piecemeal cosmetic updates and reactive maintenance have become the norm, preserving cash flow at the expense of guest experience. What is particularly cynical about this approach is how it exploits the very nostalgia and loyalty that built Circus Circus in the first place. Families return because of their memories, only to find those memories tarnished. Budget-conscious travelers book because of comparatively low room rates, only to discover hidden costs in terms of comfort, safety, and dignity. Industry analysts like Martin Chen of Hospitality Insights point out the unsustainable nature of this strategy. Martin Chen says this is a classic case of milking an asset. Extract maximum profit while investing minimal capital. It can work in the short term, but eventually you hit a tipping point where your reputation becomes so damaged that even discounted rates will not attract guests. The truth is, Circus Circus is not failing by accident. It is being allowed to deteriorate because the current model is more profitable than investing in genuine improvements. They are banking on nostalgia and desperation to fill rooms while providing the bare minimum experience. This approach creates a downward spiral. As conditions worsen, rates must be lowered to attract guests. Lower rates mean less revenue for improvements. Less investment leads to further deterioration, requiring even lower rates. Eventually, the property reaches a point where even extensive renovation may not salvage its reputation. Former Las Vegas Gaming Control Board member Richard Harding puts it bluntly. There's an unwritten contract in hospitality. You can charge budget rates, but you still must provide clean, safe accommodations. When operators violate that basic promise, they are not just failing their customers, they are undermining trust in the entire destination. Which raises the question, if the last affordable family option in Vegas becomes unlivable, who is Las Vegas really for anymore? The story of Circus Circus is more than just one property's decline. It is a microcosm of what happens when profit maximization overtakes all other considerations. It reveals the hollowness behind corporate promises and the vulnerability of consumers who lack better options. Most importantly, it shows what happens when we fail to hold powerful entities accountable for their obligations to basic standards of service and safety. The families who built Vegas are being priced out and neglected. If you have experienced this betrayal firsthand, drop your Circus Circus story in the comments below. This channel exposes what the corporations do not want you to know. Hit that subscribe button and bell icon so you never miss when we reveal their next scheme. Which Vegas property should we investigate next?